Alright people, so welcome back to another video in our Mitre-Attack series here. So today we are going to continue with the remote access that we started some time ago, and this is now the third sub-technique. It's called Distributed Component Object Model, DCOM, and before we get into the details here, don't worry, so I am not going to dig into this Windows specific technology here. It's not utterly important anyways, but it's important to know that it exists, and it's important to know how we can detect that kind of stuff and what to do about it. So let's jump right into it. So today we have Sunday the 25th of January. We are still lateral movement. Remote services is the sub-technique, and so distributed component object model. Platform is Windows, and just keep in mind whenever you see some weird terminologies, okay, like this, and you can't really make sense out of the title immediately, it's a good indicator that you are deep into the Windows game here. And that's exactly what it is. So without even reading the text, you see what's going on here. COM, DCOM, distributed link library, dynamic link library, exe, RPC, ACL. We are deep into the Windows game here. And I mean, unpopular opinion, but if you want to increase the security of your company, right now, shut down all Windows systems and replace them by Linux. But of course you can't do that because you have the office workers. They can't live without Microsoft Excel. They cannot live without Microsoft Word and without Outlook. So people in business, they need to live, they need Windows. But from a security perspective, Windows is a little bit challenging. So I don't want to bore you with the details. If it really interests you, read that stuff. The takeaway here is shut down these Windows services that are just convenience features, DCOM. So distributed object model, what does it do in a nutshell? Really in a nutshell, we don't want to dig deep into this unless you are a defender and want to create a rule. But I'll show you in a moment how detection works on this. It is very simply a method that allows one system to execute commands on another system, and it uses distributed component object model to achieve that. That's what it is. Calling DLLs, so these dynamic libraries, you can have malicious code in them, executables, you can have malicious code in them, and that's what you can trigger remotely. That's why this DLL stuff has a lot of potential for mischief. And just after the years, you spot, you get like a feeling, you know, sometimes you get like a feeling whenever it is worth digging into that stuff or not. And in this case, it is really not worth digging too much into that stuff. If you are an administrator, well, okay, that's your job, do it. But look, so these are all terminologies that are somehow affected by this DCOM. So there are access control lists, there is the registry, which is another great Windows specific thing. So you can hear, by the way, I'm talking about this, I'm not a huge fan of this. So here again, we have a piece of technology that is highly vulnerable to cyber criminals, but our administrators, they love to use it apparently. Some legacy old guys who really want to use that stuff from the, it doesn't say from what year DCOM is, but let me guess, this is a technology from the 90s or so. So this stuff must have been around in Windows 95, 98. It's that kind of stuff, okay? And I might be wrong on some of those statements, but the direction, I think, is still correct. We are here into the Windows game. What is the problem? This DCOM stuff is abused by cyber criminals, and you as a cyber defender now must distinguish between, okay, is it my admin doing administrative work, or is it a cyber criminal who is triggering Windows applications, and here APIs. See that? So APIs, yes, of course, that thing is also can call APIs somewhere. And that's what it is. You need a valid account, as usual, to do that. So you need an admin account. And but everything else is not utterly interesting to me. So I'm not going to educate myself on DDE, Dynamic Data Exchange. It's a technique. We might get into this. We have WMI, Windows Management Instrumentation. So as you can see, we have stuck, how do you say in German? This is when you when you use a wooden stick and you tickle a beehive with it. That's what we have found here. That's a beehive, and you want to stay away from it. But as cybersecurity people, we have to deal with it, unfortunately. But that's what it is. Technology to execute arbitrary code remotely. You just need an admin account, and then you can have executables, DLLs, API calls, RPC, access control lists, and the registry. So you have access to all of that stuff, and guess what? Each and every one of these things, the easiest one is exe, right? Executable files, we understand, that can be a virus. Well, registry, access control list, RPC, all of that can be malicious too. And this is just a technology to access all of that. That's what we have here. Okay. Let's get to procedures now. So, not surprisingly, you have here three. So Cobalt Strike, we all know, can deliver beacon payloads for lateral movement by leveraging remote COM executions. Yeah, so beacons, and then you have a software Empire. We might dig into this, by the way. Empire, I heard a lot, but they use COM for lateral movement. Why lateral movement? Because you can execute arbitrary code with that stuff. It just needs to be located on the target system. You need an admin account, and boom, you can execute whatever you like. Well, that's pretty bad. That's a nightmare for us cyber defenders. So these are the cases where really, that's my initial statement. If you want to improve the security of your company, shut down Windows wherever you can. This is one of those cases that highly motivates that statement to just shut it down. And Microsoft doesn't bother implementing these things in a way that they can be maybe less harmful for your environment. No, that's just a powerful tool. From an engineering perspective, this might be a great idea, but what they never have in mind, unfortunately, in their developments is, well, what if malicious people get their hands to that? Well, then they can, how the younger people say, they can pwn your entire infrastructure with that. Well, good job. So, yes, Microsoft has been developed in an era in the 90s where cyber criminality was not a real deal, I think, in the 90s. Not as much as it is today. So cyber criminals today have, I feel like there are more of them. And also the internet, you can educate yourself easily. So I feel like in the 90s, when all of that stuff has been developed, people just had in mind to provide value to society. That's what Microsoft did. They provided a nice operating system, and it works greatly when you just want to get your job done. But from a security perspective, Microsoft Windows is a nightmare, and always has been. Ever since I joined the security game, Microsoft was always one of those things where you knew, okay, that's where shit hits the fan. Always, okay, not just with this DCOM stuff. But that's why I'm a little bit upset about these things. So we know they exist. Why not simply shut down DCOM? Why not shut down this technology altogether and educate your administrators to use other methods of dealing with their job? Well, that's a political topic. You can't get it done. And we security people, we need to protect that stuff. But okay, procedure examples, you see it is relevant. Only 3 procedures. There are tons more if you just research. Okay, so there are a lot of more stuff going on here than just these 3. But you see some famous names at least. Then mitigations. So what is the mitigation for that stuff? So they want you to isolate that and ensure all COM alerts and protected views are enabled. So COM alert, I'm not familiar what that is, but it must be something that says, oh, COM has been executed. And then at some dashboard it must be showing up. Well, yes, you want to at least be alerted when that stuff is being used. Okay. Will your administrator do that? Maybe. In the detection, so this is a typical case where don't rely on your admins to use that tool correctly. Some of them will do that, so the better administrators out there who know their job, who know a little security, they will use it properly. But all we need to do is detect it and shut it down immediately when we see something suspicious. Then what they say here is a second mitigation, disable or remove feature or program. Yeah, consider disabling DCOM through, and then they say just through this executable here. Okay, so disable it through this. Apparently hackers might get their hands on this executable and then they can use it. Well, okay, disable it. Then another recommendation, enable Windows Firewall, which prevents DCOM instantiation by default. Okay, so you can say if you are in one part of your segmented network and you want to do a DCOM command into another part of the network, shut it down by the firewall. Yes, that's one way to do it too. And the other is, of course, privilege account management, and here they give you some stuff that I'm not going to dig into, but this is registry stuff here. This is registry. When you see H key local machine, that's Windows specific. I tried to dig into the registry at the earlier years of my security time. I gave up. Okay, so all I can tell you about the registry, there are some IOCs, indicators of compromise, that are related to the registry. That's that much you gotta know. And you can monitor these IOCs in your SOC. Take that with you. Don't go into, and I just jump back now 2 pages, don't do the mistake of going into that endless rabbit hole of Windows terminologies, APIs, DLLs, RPCs, ACLs, DDEs, it doesn't end. It doesn't end here. This is just really the tip of the iceberg. It goes deep. Don't waste your time with any of that. There are indicators of compromise, as we see here. Monitor them. If something is suspicious, shut it down, and then expect your administrators to approach you angrily while you shut things down. But that's what you gotta do. Okay, so this is one of those Windows administrator versus security battlefields. It's not pleasant. I've seen that, so whenever I can, I try to stay out of it, but it's difficult. Let's get to detection. This is the solution to the problem here. So you will not be able to mitigate it. You will not be able to convince your IT department to shut that stuff down. They want to use it. They can use whatever they want, but whenever it goes to a security critical behavior, and if you have security breach, and when you have not a feeling, but if you have indicators that malicious behavior is taking place, you gotta detect it, and then you have all rights to shut it down. That's the way to deal with it. And here you see a remote DCOM invocation by a privileged account using RPC port 135. So this is what Mitre-Attack gives you here. So they tell you what to look out for. So port 135 is this RPC, and DCOM is using that port. Okay. And then followed by this abnormal behavior. We have that all the time. So as security guy, you should not care what is the cause of the abnormal behavior. And don't let anybody convince you that, oh, that's DCOM, that's not abnormal, that's normal. Don't trust this. Always investigate it as if it is a cyber attack, DCOM or not. Because in that argument, the administrator will win any technical argument against you, security guy. Because I have no clue about DCOM. Heck knows what that even is. All I know, can be used to execute malicious code. That's all I need to know. I don't want to be battling the discussions about DCOM details and how it is secure and he has multi-factor authentication enabled and nothing can happen. These discussions lead nowhere. Okay, this is the way how you can eventually even the administrators who are fighting for this technology, and I know they exist. Okay, so I didn't fight DCOM in the past, but other technologies. And They are always convinced of the security and that everything is fine, but once the security breach happens, they no longer remember these arguments anymore. Okay, and then they come to you and say, oh, you should have detected it. Yes, I should have, but I trusted you that this stuff is correct. So don't trust. As you can see, there is some salt and pepper in this topic from very, very, well, bad situations that happened in the past in my time as a security analyst, where I've seen people falling into traps and then they call you, okay, consultant, help us, we don't know what's going on, what should we do? Well, what should you do? The best thing you can do is initiate a disaster recovery plan, which maybe exists, maybe not, and the next thing you know, you are in the middle of a crisis management situation. You don't want to do that, and the start is with stuff like that. Okay, but detection. So just monitor that stuff. MITRE gives you the idea how to do it, and then you're good. The very moment you see a privileged account using that technology, and it rarely does so. So first of all, get a look for your environment. You have the logs. You have to obviously have the log management in place. If not, connect this type of stuff to your SIM system. So security information, event management like ArcSight, Splunk, Microsoft Sentinel, stuff like that. Elasticsearch. So there are many technologies where you can manage your logs. Connect these logs, these systems where DCOM can be executed. So those are Windows servers, okay? Make sure that these logs end up in your SIM and then see how often is DCOM used in your system. And if it is used rarely and all of a sudden you see activity there, well, that's suspicious. If it is being used all the time, well, maybe your administrators are using it all the time, but it can also mean that you are already compromised. And that's the thing that you gotta pay attention to. Okay, so we are 17 minutes in, so as you can see, this is one of those Windows, the opposite of a Windows fanboy at this point, but we gotta deal with it. Okay, so you will never see the day where Windows is being shut down in the corporate field, and even if they switch to Linux, well, what will happen? Attackers will start to target Linux machines more. It's not like Linux is any easier than Windows, but I feel like the architecture behind Linux is much cleaner than Windows. Okay, Linux is just straightforward. You have some processes, you have some directories where the stuff is located, and that's about it. In Windows, you have your registry, you have hidden directories, you have them in Linux too, by the way. You have all kinds of process executions and scheduled tasks, and they are in different locations. In Linux, it is more, there are not so many locations where you have to look out for to find something suspicious. So process execution looks cleaner to me. It's nothing that I can scientifically prove or anything. It's just a feeling that you have when you work with Linux machines. It feels cleaner. And whenever you have suspicious behavior on a Linux machine, the same thing. For some reason, the differentiation between malicious and not, for me it is easier on a Linux machine than on Windows. On Windows a whole lot of stuff appears suspicious for some reason. And in the end it's just a machine like fighting with itself. In Windows you still have software from the 90s. In your latest Windows 2019 whatever server, you still have software from the 90s that is being used there. It is under the hood. And yeah, that stuff is a nightmare, usually. Let's see what references we have here. So we have Hamilton from 2019, hunting COM objects. That might be something worth. So the title, I like the title. So they are hunting for that stuff. So these people might provide you with IOCs. And then you have Microsoft describing their COM stuff. It's fairly recent, so maybe it's not a technology from the 90s. I don't know. This was just the initial impression that I had here. Lateral movement using outlooks, create object method, .NET to script, okay. Nelson, lateral movement using COM objects, okay. Lateral movement via DCOM, round 2, so that's, I like that. So he took 2 rounds because it was so good the first time. Okay, So we gotta check this out. Yeah, another DCOM stuff, much scripting, applications. Okay. What is protected view? Enable or disable DCOM. So Microsoft gives you instructions on how to get rid of it. That's good. And they do that 2017. Let me Google real quick. I want to know when was DCOM developed. DCOM. So just go to Wikipedia, it's good enough. What year, people? Okay, don't know. Let's see. DCOM development. Yeah. So, yeah, Microsoft Distributed Component Object was publicly launched as a beta for Windows 95. So sometimes that's a AI answer, by the way. So I'm too lazy to Google it properly, but yeah, so my feeling was correct. This is a Windows 95 stuff. Maybe I've seen it in the past. So I mean, you might have noticed that there was a little bit of a hot-blooded when I talk about DCOM. Maybe I met DCOM in my daily job at some point and I forgot about it. But when I first saw DCOM, there was immediate stress. I felt stress and aggression towards that topic already. So, and yeah, 95. So it looks like my memory worked correctly on this topic. So, yeah, the critique is then all right. So, developed 95. In 2017, they publish articles how to get rid of it. So, there's good indication that you might want to get rid of it. But yeah, all right, people. So far so good. We now understand a little bit what DCOM is. We understand that we should get rid of it. We know how to monitor it. That's important. It's in the lateral movement, as you can see here. It is relevant, so software and hackers are using that stuff. We know some mitigations. Pretty much shut it down as much as you can. That's what it says here. Detection strategy. Look out for RPC port 135. There are some references. So let's see if we want to go into the DCOM. If I read that name again in one of the further techniques that we are going to cover, we might get into these papers. Also, let me know in the comments if you are interested in that kind of stuff. And yeah, with that being said, thank you for watching and thank you for spending time on cybersecurity. It is time well spent as usual, and see you in the next video then. Goodbye.